We're recording. Good evening, everybody. My name is Nicole, or good afternoon, I suppose, too. My name is Nicole, and I head up community over at Trusted. And tonight, we're really thrilled that you're joining us to find your perfect nursing shoe. And we are joined by two amazing ladies, and very funny ladies, I may add, from BALAS Shoes. Sorry, that's my dog shaking in the background. Tonight, we're going to be talking about nursing, footwear, and all the good stuff that comes with it. And if you're not familiar with Trusted, this is your first virtual event with us. Welcome, welcome. Trusted is the place for the modern nurse. We place nurses in travel assignments all across the country, and we host amazing, funny, incredibly helpful events like these. We also have a podcast, we have an incredible blog, and we just really have an amazing community for nurses just like you. So with that, I'm gonna let Steph share her slides, and I'll talk through a few things before I hand it over to them.
Awesome, here we go. Oops. Let's see here. Present. No, yeah, present. There we go.
All right, so let's advance. We're going to talk about finding your perfect nursing shoe.
There we go.
Okay, a couple of things before we get going. This is a new-ish system that we're using. It's called Bevy. You're all here with us, so thanks again for joining. The best part is with Bevy is the ease of the platform, as well as the ability to ask and upvote questions. So instead of like raising your hand or like making a lot of noise or motion on Zoom, you can ask and upvote questions through the chat. So if you look in your upper right-hand corner, you'll see three different tabs. You'll see general, which is like, hello, how are you? What's all going on for the general public? You'll see Q&A, and that's the one I want you all to pay attention to. So if you have specific questions, which I hope you will, and that's the best part of this event, this is the place where you ask them, and you can upvote other questions that you think are really helpful to you too. So just hit that thumbs up sign, and those questions will float to the top. And then lastly, you have the DMs. That seems fairly obvious, direct messages. If you know someone, see someone, or have a question for any of the hosts, that we are available for you right here. And then second, obviously, this is your time to listen, learn, and connect. And we hope you get inspired to find your perfect nursing shoe. And I think that's it from me, right, Steph and Cap? Now it's your turn. All right, I will disappear, and both Brittany and I will come back for question time when we get through the presentation. So we'll be back.
Awesome. We were just setting up our things so we can see questions as you all ask them as they come through on our other computer. So again, who are we? My name is Stephanie Taylor, and this is Caprice Neely. We're just going to be talking today about problems with poor fitting shoes, what happens to your feet during a shift, how to find the right fit for a shoe, and what BALA brings to the table. So we're going to start here with a fun video. Our marketing team, this was the first video we ever released, so hope you all enjoy it.
Hey, I just found out the bladder scanner's on the floor. I'll be right back.
Dust. A legend is born for the game, born for the call, up from the ground, and out of the gates. I am the storm, I am the thunder, I am the eye of the hurricane. Yeah, cause I'm the only one that's born for this shit. They feeling the rumble when I make it quick. Out on the earth, up from the bottom, onto the top, making it shake, yeah. I'm legendary, notorious, victorious. I'm legendary. Nothing can stop me. I can't be contained. I was born ready. I'm legendary. Legendary, notorious, victorious, I'm legendary, victorious, I'm legendary. Nice.
Awesome. Hope you guys have seen that before. If you haven't, all of the nurses featured in this video, they are real nurses. They have worked as nurses if they're not currently nurses. So just something really special for us here at BALA.
All right, so we had this moment in time where we really felt like we needed to bring a shoe that was designed specifically for you. You have such interesting needs and in your footwear and beyond. And we've got a team here of some very experienced footwear people, and we wanted to bring something to you that really serviced all of your needs with no compromises. So that's why we started BALA.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
don't
just went
skip
through both of them.
yourself.
All right. I'll introduce myself. My name is Stephanie Taylor. I'm the manager of product testing operations here at BALA. A little bit of the educational background of myself. I've got a master's degree in biomechanics and physiology. I also have another master's degree in sports product management. I started my career at Nike in the innovation space. I was working on performance footwear there, just doing a lot of research with athletes. I'm California born and raised, but I moved to Oregon about 3 years ago for green and hiking, and I love Oregon, and it is now home for me. Some fun facts: I'm a huge strategy board game player. Settlers of Catan is my favorite board game. I'm a bandwagon sports fan, go Gonzaga, and I'm a former collegiate water polo player turned triathlete.
I've never even heard of that board game. So now I'm gonna have to look at
Friday night, we'll be playing, it sounds
okay,
like.
all right. So I'm Caprice Neely, and I'm one of the co-founders of BALA. And I've spent, amazingly, almost 3 decades in the footwear industry and working for a lot of major brands. And later in this presentation, we will get to some of the things that frustrated me and why we, and part of our process on how we started BALA. And I just really thrive on, as it says, like experiencing new cultures, traveling around the globe when we're not in COVID times. And I like all the things that designers tend to like. So, but interestingly, I also paint dog portraits, which is kind of a fun thing. And I returned to snowboarding after a 10-year hiatus this year. So that's kind of a new fun thing for me.
So Cap, where's the first place you want to travel once you're able to do so?
Oh, well, that's a tough one because I think the first place I will travel to is Ireland. My husband is from Ireland, so we are so missing seeing our family back there. If I could choose any place in the world, I really want to go to the Maldives. Yeah,
That'd be nice.
Some scuba diving. Mm-hmm.
All right. All right, so the first thing we're going to chat about here is problem with poor fitting shoes. I read the reviews or the survey responses you all sent in early this morning, and conveniently, a lot of them are going to be addressed during our presentation. So problems with poor fitting shoes: bunions, hammer toes, ingrown toenails. All of these are caused by shoes that are a little bit too narrow in that toe box region. Corns, blisters, both of those are caused by friction and rubbing of the shoe against your skin. Morton's neuroma, again, caused by a lot of pressure by wearing shoes that are a little bit too tight. And plantar fasciitis, causes of that are endless, but are kind of unknown actually. But there's certain shoes that you can wear that can mitigate the negative effects of plantar fasciitis. Some more problems with poor fitting shoes are that they can cause pain and discomfort in your body. There's soreness in your lower back, legs, and hips. Your body works as a complete system. And as you're wearing shoes that just aren't properly fitting, your gait can change, and that can cause muscle imbalances. And all that results in pain. And it's just a trickle effect. And everything can be negatively affected by wearing some poor shoes. Next thing we're going to chat about is what happens to your feet during a shift. I'm sure this is a very familiar picture to most of you. If you have worked 12+ hour shifts, edema is just something that is inevitable. And edema for nurses, that you're always on your feet, this is caused by gravity. Gravity pulls your blood to your lower extremities, and the veins aren't able to quite bring it back to your heart. And so what happens is the fluid leaves the blood, water leaves the blood, and it just kind of concentrates in the tissue around your legs and feet. And so why this is a problem? Well, it's uncomfortable. And one of the reasons it's uncomfortable is because your feet swell about a half size in width and also a little bit in the length. And if you're wearing shoes that you are typically a size 8, well, now your feet are size 8.5 stuck in a size 8 shoe. So it can become very, very uncomfortable. So conveniently, if you do experience edema while on your shifts, there are solutions. The biggest solution, the easiest one is throwing on some compression socks. What compression socks do is they increase the pressure in the tissues beneath the skin. They reduce the leakage of fluid from the capillaries, and ultimately what that does is that it reduces swelling. We recommend graduated compression socks. There's a couple times, some are more geared towards medical reasons, but the graduated compression socks work just fine for nurses in your setting.
So what happens to your feet during shift, continued, is we have known for a while, you told us, that you typically either wear clogs or some form of athletic shoes, and primarily running shoes, right? So there are really good things about each of these. There are also some bad things. And as you can see, the clogs are super easy to wipe down and clean off. They're also really easy to get on and off. But on the bad side, most of you reported that you don't really like the style of them that much. They are not flexible. And when we talk about shoes not being flexible, this is something that's interesting. Your foot needs to go through all of the kind of natural motions that it can go through when you're walking in order to activate all the different muscles and tendons and ligaments and everything to promote optimal foot health. So when your foot is held in kind of a stagnant position, which is more what happens in a clog, it can feel really good when you're standing for long periods of time. When you transition out of a clog and try to wear other footwear or even go barefoot, that's when some of the problems can happen, because you haven't been engaging all these muscles and tendons and ligaments. They're now being asked to do things that they've kind of almost put to sleep, so to speak. So the other thing about clogs that is an unfortunate is if you were to look at the back of a clog, like looking at it, if you look at the heel of it, it goes like almost like a V shape, right? So that's what we call being undercut. What that leads to is a natural tendency to roll on your ankles. And I think we all know about ankle rolls with clog wearing. So, and not the best of traction necessarily for if you have to do a quick, sprint down the hall to a code or something like that. On the sneaker and or running shoe side of things, excellent flexibility, traction, style. There's lots of more colors available, etc. And they're nice and breathable, right? So that's something that everybody really likes. The fact that they're not fluid resistant, I mean, you guys have told us so many times, and you please keep sharing those stories. We want to hear all of them because we love actually getting I don't know, it's like a morbid curiosity thing with me, at least. I want to hear all the gory stories, but not great for you. And getting goop on your sock or your foot is not ideal. They're built for running, which means that they're built for really high impact, especially in your heel, and then giving that energy back. You spend most of your time standing and or walking, and so what's much more important is weight distribution. And finally, that many of these are built on a men's last. This, I don't know if you can see me, hopefully you can. This is what we call a last, and this is our last that we build our shoe on. The last is what the foot form that you build a shoe on. And I'll get into it a little bit more in later slides, but leave you with that cliffhanger.
Awesome. Well, as Kat did mention, fluid resistant shoes and shoes that might not be fluid resistant. If you want to throw in the comment section the nastiest thing you've ever had seep through your shoes, we might be enjoying reading those later.
Yes.
On that note, we have a Q&A. We've got some questions here in the next tab. If you all have any other questions, please go ahead and put those in right now.
But we can start with, so Christine is asking, how do you determine size? I'm an 11 and find it difficult to find shoes that fit and aren't too small. Great question. And we are gonna, so the cool thing is we're gonna address that in a little bit here, and it has to do with what we were just talking about with if you happen to be wearing especially athletic shoes that are built on men's lasts / foot forms, that's why you're partially why you're probably running into some of these issues. Okay, you want to take this one?
Sure. How do you keep your laces tied, and what is the button loop on the tongue? Great question. How do you keep your laces tied? I always double knot mine. The snap, it's intended to go over your laces. So after you tie your shoes, you can go ahead and snap them right over, and it helps keep your shoes tied. It doesn't permanently keep them tied, but it helps add some protection for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh, let's read this one because you just have to. I mean, M. Dewey just sent in, spilled a whole bedpan down my legs, tossed out those shoes because I never feel clean wearing them again. I'd never feel clean wearing them again. That is hilarious.
We've got a couple more here.
Gosh.
Amniotic fluid.
Oh, man.
Blood stains.
Observing a nurse suction a patient when it spilled onto our shoes. Ew! Oh my gosh.
Placental blood on your Brooks. Nice.
There you go.
Splashes, bedside commode. Awesome. Great.
So good.
All right, next we're going to talk about how to find the right fit. So hopefully
we can really answer. Oh yeah, those went away.
So hopefully, Christine, we can go more in depth is for the question you're asking. The first, how to measure your feet. First of all, go ahead and get your feet measured. You can go to any specialty running store. One thing that's super important is to know that your feet change. Your feet change throughout the day. Your feet change throughout your life. Your feet can change during certain life changes that you have. This tool right here is called the Brannick, and we use it to measure the length of your foot as well as the width of your foot. Fun fact, most of your feet are actually not the same size. Your left and right foot, one can be slightly shorter, slightly longer, a little bit wider, a little bit more narrow. So that's kind of a fun thing to know about. But on the feet changing part, as we talked about edema, your feet are going to swell throughout the day, and that can change your shoe size or your foot size about half size. Also, certain life changes can cause your feet to change. Pregnancy can cause your feet to grow wider as well as longer. And also as you age, laxity, your tendons start to stretch out. So as those tendons stretch out, you lose a little bit of structure in your foot, and that can also cause your foot to get a little bit wider as well as longer. When you're at the shoe store, or if you're ordering online, go ahead and test multiple sizes within the same brand and across brands too. You want to make sure you leave with that perfect fit. Multiple brands. Also, just because you're a size 8 in one brand does not mean you're a size 8 in another brand. Sizing is kind of arbitrary, and a lot of brands do sizing differently. But also check out multiple brands, because if you do have certain things you're looking for, if you've got wide feet, if you've got narrow feet, if you need a shoe with super high arches, there are brands that make shoes specific to all of those needs. So go ahead and do some kind of searches, and that they'll pop up for that, I'm sure. And also when you're going to go try on some shoes, wear socks that you usually wear to work. If you usually wear really thin ankle socks, go ahead and wear those. But if you typically wear thicker compression socks, you're going to want to wear those when you go fit for your new work shoes, because if the socks are really thick and you wear short, thin socks to try them out, the fit could be off.
Hey, Steph, also on
Yeah.
this, before you go ahead, two things. You said you let them know that people's feet are usually different sizes. So would you size toward the larger foot? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. So if one of your feet is a 6, one's a 6.5, we recommend you wear the 6.5, because you don't want to wear shoes that are too tight. Based on that first slide we went through of all those things that could happen.
Yeah. And then would you suggest, excuse me, I know this is tough for depending on when your shift is happening, but would you suggest they try on shoes at the end of their shift versus the beginning?
Yeah, definitely wear try on shoes towards the end. If you're a normal 9 to 5 person, they recommend about 3 o'clock. But towards the end of your day is when your feet are going to be, when you're on your feet that much and your feet are swollen. So definitely recommend measuring your feet at the end of the day.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so for shoe fit zones, we've got different parts of our feet that we really want to pay attention to as far as how things are fitting. And I know there's a lot of words on here, so you'll be able to get a hold of this presentation afterwards so you can go over stuff. But really, like, one of the main things to focus on is that middle arrow that kind of goes around the circumference of the tallest part of your foot, which is called the instep. That area in a shoe is really the zone that locks your foot into the shoe, and it prevents it from going forwards and backwards, which is really important, as well as some side to side. And so that's where you want to concentrate on having a nice snug fit. It's the instep, the top of your foot is actually the most sensitive part of your foot as well. So you don't want it to be tight, because that can actually cause pain and can even lead to some numbing in your toes. So don't have it too tight, but you want it to be snug enough so that it holds your foot in place within the shoe. The metatarsal zone is another key area, the more forward arrow going around the foot. And you all know where the metatarsal zone is, but across the widest part of your foot, this is where you want to make sure that you have enough. Again, it can be snug, but not too tight, because if the shoe is too tight, that's when you're going to end up kind of squishing the bones together, and that ends up with what was it called?
Morton's neuroma.
Morton's neuroma, yes. So definitely pay attention to that zone. You want some wiggle room for your toes. That's space above the top of your toes as well as in front, so that as you get some of that swelling during your shift, you have room for that. And it's frankly just really healthy for your toes to be able to move around within a shoe. The heel, also nice, snug, and support. You don't want to feel your foot lifting off the bottom of the heel of the shoe at all, and then coming back down. That if you have any of that movement when you've got your shoe on, that's what tends to lead to a lot of blistering in the Achilles zone. So, and then lastly, I would just say, pay attention to how your feet are feeling throughout your shift. You may have to loosen your laces during the shift to kind of alleviate pressure on that instep zone as your foot swells. So that's that.
All right, next slide. We're going to talk about some lacing techniques. If you already have a pair of shoes that you love so many things about them, but the fit just isn't quite right, here are some tips and tricks that you can use. I want to focus on just a couple of these, but you can easily Google lacing techniques for fill in the blank, and something will come up. And the ones I'd like to focus on are wide forefoot. A lot of you did share in the survey that you filled out to register for this event that you have wide feet. If you are feeling pressure in the front of your foot, in the forefoot, I suggest you look at some of these different lacing techniques, and these lacing techniques will alleviate some pressure that you're feeling in your foot. There's also some, the first one there for heel slipping. Again, if you're heel slipping, if you're finding yourself getting blisters, go ahead and try these out. We've had a lot of success using them ourselves, and also for customers that have purchased BALAS. And so you can use them really for any shoe you have. One other thing we wanted to touch on, since a lot of you did share that you have plantar fasciitis, is what shoes should you buy if you've got plantar fasciitis? We can't really tell you exactly what pair to go buy because everybody is so different, but we can tell you what things you should look for. And those things are a shoe that has a lot of arch and heel support. Mind you, you're going to usually wake up in the morning with this excruciating pain on your heel, and that's due to this band that goes across your foot being inflamed. And it's inflamed because there's little tears in the fascia. So a lot of cushioning in the midfoot that will help prevent the impact on the heel. You also want a firm heel to minimize the stretching of this plantar fascia, thus hopefully reducing the number of tears you do get in that. Something to avoid, minimalistic shoes. Stay away from those. You want that cushioning to make sure your foot doesn't get all that impact when you take a step. One other thing on plantar fasciitis is they can make socks specific for those who have plantar fasciitis. I've never personally worn them, but I did see them in a specialty running store. If it's something you are having a lot of frustrations with, by all means, go ahead and try a pair of the socks and see if they work for you. Next, we're going to chat about what BALA brings to the table.
So as mentioned earlier, what we really wanted to do when we were creating BALA was try something different than the rest of especially the athletic industry does. So when you look at this photo, you can pretty clearly tell which foot is the female foot and which is the male foot, right? So not only are there visual differences, but there are also loads of different scientific differences between the female foot and the male foot. And it's much like the rest of our bodies, right? So for decades now, females have been sacrificing fit because all the athletic shoes were built on lasts, which is again the foot form, that are based on male foot morphology. And then they're just simply shrunk down to fit or to women's sizes, but not to fit the female foot. So what ends up happening are things, here are some of the differences between the female foot and the male foot. If you compare the width of the female heel to the width of her widest point at her forefoot, the forefoot is wider than the heel than in comparison to a man's foot. The female foot has shorter toe length in comparison to men's toe length. The female foot also has a much higher variance in the height and shape and length of arches than the male foot does. And let's see, the biggest thing here is that as the female foot grows longer, it does not grow taller at the same rate as the men's foot. So when Christine, I believe, Christine was asking about, size 11, her foot probably hasn't grown in volume and height as much as a man's foot would. So a men's size, sorry, I always get this backwards. 9.5 or 10, which would be a women's 11, will end up with a whole bunch of extra material for a lot of women. And this can result in just really poor fit, and or the heel will feel way too big. So what we at BALA decided to do is flip that on its head and start with women's foot morphology to build our last from, and that's what we did. So we've got a narrower heel in comparison to the forefoot. We've got the way it grades is built for the female foot. This is not to say that we are ignoring the men and male nurses at all, but for decades, like I said, females have been wearing shoes that were built on male lasts. So we're trying here, building our shoes on female last. We have men wearing them, and we're going to get feedback and see what that's like. And if we need to do a specific men's shoe built on a men's last, we will do that. But part of the experimenting here is to see what happens when you just flip it around.
Yeah. Not to mention, what percentage of nurses are women?
I think it's around 90.
90%.
So yeah, so that's great. The features that we bring for the BALA 12s, which is our first shoe that we're introducing into the market, not our last though, are we've got HRS cushioning. I'll kind of go from left to right. So as we talked about earlier, cushioning is so important to you. A lot of you might go into a shoe store and try on shoes that are running shoes that feel like super springy and cushy right when you first put them on. And that can feel great in the store. What happens over the period of time of your 12-hour shift is that those are built to absorb impact and then return it and spring you back so that you're getting the most efficiency out of your running stride. When you're just standing on that super squishy thing, your foot is moving around, right? And so your muscles in your foot and up your leg are actually having to make these little micro adjustments, which over the course of a 12-hour shift can add up to a lot of fatigue. So our platform is made specifically to, it does absorb some impact and return some energy, but it's really concentrated on weight distribution and eliminating those pressure points that you would get. So they may not feel as super squishy when you first put them on, but we've had several of our nurses who are wearing them right now who say like, oh, these feel a little like not as cushioned as I expected. They've given them time, and a lot of our wear testers after 3 shifts or so are like, oh, now I get it, right? And so it takes a little bit of adjustment for some people, not for all. Our arch embrace technology is really about accommodating those vastly different shapes and sizes of the arch and heights. So you want to be able to engage as you're walking. So like a hard, firm support underneath your arch is not really ideal. A lot of people think it might be. If we think back to like history and architecture, so bridges and tunnels and all these things are arch systems, and they are one of the strongest architectural systems that can be made, right? That's your foot is actually made up of several arches. I think it's maybe 5 in total. But the one in the middle of our medial side of our foot is the one that we concentrate on the most. So you want like a proprioceptive, like nice hug, a nice little bit of support, but not something that is actually doing the work for the arch itself. The arch has to be able to engage and do some of the work itself. We've created a system here that is a foam that takes on the shape of the individual arch and is such that is comfortable for people with high arches as well as people with flatter feet. Technology is all about fluid resistance. So we got all those great stories from you, and we wanted to make something that was really easy to wipe off and that repelled fluids. So that's what that is. And then our code grip is all about making it so that you have the traction that you need when you do have to maneuver around the hospital. It's designed specifically for hard, smooth hospital floor surfaces, as well as being nice and quiet for those of you who are on night shift.
Ooh, there we go.
So let's see. Do we have
All
other
right,
questions?
Christine, you've got a friend who said her balas stink after she wears them for 12 hours. She was curious how to prevent the stink since they are waterproof. Yeah, Christine, that's a great question. Less than 0.5% of our customers have reported an odor issue. There are some things you can do to prevent that. Our shoes, first of all, are completely machine washable. You can throw them in the wash and let them air dry and they're good to go. You can also sprinkle some baking soda in there and that'll help eliminate any odors.
And just to let you know, we are, as we are working on building this brand of footwear, and we're constantly trying to make things better for you. So we are looking into additional things that will help with this particular issue. And that's why we love getting feedback from you constantly, because it only helps us make things better for you. Don't put them in the dryer. That's like the big caveat here, because that can actually degrade the cushioning system as well as some of the adhesives that are necessary to keep the shoes put together.
Yeah. Also, all feedback,
Yes.
that we all hear from every single review we share that with the product team, which is us and a few others, and we always are using that to innovate and find better solutions to what we currently have.
Yeah. I personally, Jacqueline's saying, I personally have very flat feet. My difficulty is finding shoes that help with this. Would BALAS be an option? Though, so we can't guarantee, but as we were talking about, we've had, Stephanie, you can probably speak to this more, quite a few people with flat feet write in about their experiences with BALAS, and it's been pretty good, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We can't make any claims that our shoes are going to solve any problems. But Jacqueline, I think one thing to know is whether you just have always had flat feet or whether your feet became flat as a result of your tendons stretching out. If they did become flat as a result of your tendons stretching out, then we suggest you do find a shoe that does have arch support to help give what you lost, and our BALAS do have arch support. If you've always had flat feet, it's actually suggested that you don't find shoes, specifically for running shoes at least, you don't want to find shoes that provide arch support if you have flat feet just from day one, because it could alter your mechanics of running or walking. But yeah, our shoes have phenomenal arch support, and that's what some folks with flat feet definitely need to seek out. Mariah, will BALA come out with compression socks?
Oh, great leading question. Woohoo! We're working on that as we speak. And something interesting for you all would be that from the day a shoe is like sketched on a piece of paper to the point where we can bring it to you so that you can actually buy it is probably a much longer process than you think. It can take upwards of 14 months to 18 months to make this all happen. Socks, fortunately, are a little less time, but we're right in the, do we say? We're going to dangle a carrot and say, you should keep following us to see what we're going to come out with next. How's that?
There's a testing phase that goes on before product is led to market. As a company that likes to lead by science, we like to test our product and put it on nurses' feet before we release it and sell the product, to make sure it is exactly what we want it to be and to make sure it has the performance effects we want it to be. So there may or may not be product that is may or may not be making its way out to be tested. Hope that answers your question, Mariah.
Yes.
Hang tight.
Okay.
Michaela has flat and wide feet. Would BALAS provide support for that? Also, would I need to size up or order my usual size? Hey, Michaela, we currently do not offer wide sizes. Again, we have heard from our nurses, and we may or may not be working on something for the future, and hoping to offer options for everybody. But no, we currently do not offer wide sizes. By all means, order a pair. Hopefully they work for you. And there's those different lacing techniques that we did share. Hopefully one of those would work for you if you do feel like the shoes are too tight. In terms of sizing up or down, if you do have wide feet, I do suggest always sizing up if you're gonna wear shoes that are not specific to wide feet.
Katie is asking if she can become a tester.
Hey, Katie, go ahead and send me an email. It's stephanie@wearebala.com, and I will reach back out to you.
Yes.
And Kendra wants to know, if BALA comes out with compression socks, what will the size run be? I have big calves.
So,
Kendra, also reach out to me at stephanie@wearebala.com. When it comes to compression socks, different brands size them differently. Some do it by calf size, some do it by shoe size, and scale everything. But typically, if we were to come out with socks, they would likely be size 6 to 12 or 13, maybe. Something like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Okay.
I missed the
stinky shoe problem. Christine missed the stinky shoe problem. So we want to answer that again about
yeah, Christine, for your friend who's got balls that are a little stinky, they can go in the wash, no problem. So you can sprinkle some baking soda. There are some other solutions that you can just, like, there's some Google options that, if your feet smell, pour this in it, like baking soda is something easily you can find. But also Cap was sharing that innovation is something that we are always going after here at BALA. And we are working with some partners to find different solutions to make everything as odor resistant as possible. So there are some things that we have hopefully coming in the future, but yeah, not this very second, but yeah, throw them in the wash and it'll come out no problem.
And Jill is asking if knee problems are an issue. Have you had feedback that BALAs help alleviate it? So here again, we can't say that because we don't know your particular situation, right? So we can't say that BALAs are going to be the solve for you. What I would probably suggest doing is reading through some of our reviews and seeing what other people with knee issues might be saying. And I would, let's think about if maybe you can tell us like what type of shoes you're wearing right now. Because some of the things that could be attributing to that are whether you have enough support or not. And there's a whole load of things that can be causing that. So, but that's part of what I was talking about, where if you have shoes that are nice and squishy and feel like they're super comfortable on your feet, for you having to stand for really long periods of time, that could actually cause negative issues. So it's just kind of a weights and balances thing. And trial and error, unfortunately, is one of the things that you kind of have to go through to find your best shoes.
Yeah. We hope that if you wear a pair of BALAs, that your knees will feel better. A knee is very, very complicated joint. There are so many complicated things about it. A lot of tendons and ligaments and everything that goes on in there. Unless we truly understand that knee problem, it's hard to show exactly what a solution would be, but by all means, give them a go and let's hope that they do make your knees and back feel better. We have in this general tab right here.
Let's see.
Oh,
Oops. Oh,
I currently wear Hoka's. I've only worn workout shoes I played soccer in my life. So understandably, some of this is from wear and tear. Just didn't know if some folks had positive feedback. Just as you had mentioned, the spring in the heel,
maybe worse. Haha. Yeah. So I would definitely say if you've been wearing workout running shoes, to try the BALAS. And we have an amazing customer experience team, and they will completely engage with you on follow-up after you purchase your shoes. So give them a try, and we will do everything that we can to make it your best experience.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great customer service team. Christina wants to know, does BALAS stand for anything? Well, Christina, I'm gonna have our co-founder, Caprice, share what BALAS stands for.
So BALA is from the word balance, and it really is all about how we know, after hearing from so many of you and speaking with you, how much you have to balance almost these impossible things in your lives. So it's balancing patients to doctors, to balancing your family life, to your work life, to balancing the amazing stories of success and healing versus the experiences that you have when you lose a patient. It just, for us, meant that I'm trying to explain it in like a real succinct way, but frankly, we're amazed at what you have to do. And so striking that balance was something that we thought, we as shoemakers, the little bit that we can bring to your worlds to help you. So we'll help with the physical balance piece of your worlds. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, BALA come out with different colors.
Yeah.
We sure will.
We sure will. So yes. Hey, I'll dangle another carrot.
Dangle.
Keep your eyes out for something this special. You all know when Nurses Month, we're calling it Nurses Month. I think it's Nurses Week, but we're calling it
Nurses
Month.
Week. Yep.
So and so there might be a little surprise for you then, and there will be other surprises later in the year. So yeah,
you're gonna like the surprise, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Let's see, Kirsty.
Life of the shoe.
The life of the shoe. I feel like I switch off shoes often because they start becoming uncomfortable. Great question. So that is a lot of the life of the shoe is around the cushioning system that's under your foot. Some of it is about the durability of the materials in the upper part too. But I feel what becomes uncomfortable is when that cushioning system starts to break down and degrade. We have used a foam in our midsole, which is the part that's in between the part that touches the ground, which is the outsole, and the upper part of the shoe. So the midsole is the foam part. Our foam is built specifically for the weight distribution, but also longevity. So the cell structure of our foam does not break down as quickly as your typical running shoe. So you should get more life out of it. I honestly can't say exactly what the longevity of the shoes should be because everybody wears their shoes so differently. And, it's going to depend. Are you only wearing them for work? Are you wearing them at work in other places? But many months of use you would get.
What would you say, about 6 to 9?
Yeah, 6 to 9 or 6 to 12, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Yeah. If you do feel that they start to become uncomfortable and you start noticing that cushioning becoming less and less, then that's probably about time to grab a new pair.
Yeah.
Some lifespans of shoes are measured by miles, running shoes particularly. So you can always tally the number of miles that you're doing in your shoe and kind of buy a new shoe every X hundred miles.
Okay.
The life of the shoes. Okay, next one. Wicked case of cankles. Have you gotten any feedback? Holly, we haven't had much feedback on that. The layer that goes around your ankle, it's very elastic. It's quite stretchy. And so no one's expressed that it's too tight on them. What we can recommend is
Jennifer answers. She has
Jennifer's. I'm hoping this improve. Yeah, so Jennifer says it's she's had them where it's been too tight. Hoping that it's going to improve as she breaks them in. By all means, go ahead and give them a go. If you don't like them, you can return them. No problems. Yeah, it will stretch out a little bit, as Jennifer has shared. But in terms of getting them on, it fits like a glove. So your shoe is going to fit like a glove when you put it on. But in terms of being able to get it on, it's once it's on, it's very comfortable.
I like to compare it a little bit to, we've all probably at some point in our lives worn some kind of a compression garment, whether it's light, like Spanx or something like that. And that's kind of security feel that you get from something like that is what we were striving for in our footwear. And that also, one of the things we didn't talk about was the knit part of the shoe, and that knit fit is what we're calling it. It's meant to fit a little bit snug so that it gives your foot a nice hug all around it. And because it's knit, it can conform to the individual contours of your particular foot. What's nice about that is it works in conjunction with our arch and brace system to really support your foot in a 360-degree way. So, and we have heard from some people that I feel like I wear them, and I feel like mine over time have definitely right around your ankle have loosened up a bit as you put them on and off multiple times. So I can look forward to that. Okay.
Generally, got some thoughts into those.
Yeah, let's see what's happening.
I don't think there's any questions. I love the
I think
knit
so
fit,
either.
a luxurious glove. So many carrots, dangling the carrots.
This is awesome.
Yeah, great. Shout out to our customer service team. Thank you guys.
Thank you all for joining Trusted in BALA for the event, and we hope to see you soon and come back for more.